The Tale of Sam Fuller, written by Sam Gallenberger. Before I get to me, I need to start here. There's a story people began telling in our town of Casper called the Tale of Sam Fuller. A while back, Sam and his little brother Toby were playing by the lake. Sam was using a rock to write things in the sand, and Toby was playing around with his new toy shark. It didn't take long, however, for another group of kids to come around. They started making fun of Sam. Apparently, he would talk to himself in a mirror at night, and somehow that story got out. The bullying persisted, and the boys demanded Sam and Toby swim to the middle of the lake. Sam protested. Toby was far too little and couldn't even swim. See, that didn't stop these boys, however. One of them threw Toby in while the others held Sam back. The main bully began throwing rocks at Toby to get him to swim deeper. It was obvious that he was struggling, but his fear of being hit by the rocks instinctively forced him to go deeper into the lake. Sam fought to escape, but to no avail. Toby didn't get far before he started going under. The bullies were too busy dealing with Sam to even notice. Sam, however, noticing, gouged one of the bullies' eyes, grabbed a stick, and pierced another boy's leg with it. Sam dove into the water and swam as fast as he could to rescue his brother, but by the time Toby had gone under, there was no sign of him in the dark and murky water. Sam looked frantically for Toby. He bawled and screamed between dives, but eventually he had expended too much energy and sadly began to go under himself. Coming to the realization that his little brother was dead, Sam stopped attempting to swim. As his body gradually approached the lake's dark floor, he felt nothing but pure hatred. As he descended deeper, water entered his body, and his lungs began to collapse. It's speculated that his last thoughts were on that of revenge. Shortly after is when the disappearances started. The city was already in mourning due to the loss of the two boys, but the story had been manipulated by the bullies and was said to have been a terrible accident. No questions asked. It didn't take long before children started saying they saw a creature at night. The creature allegedly having pale, permanently wet skin. The face was said to lack facial features, except for an abnormally large mouth, one that was constantly muttering. One of the bullies was quickly found dead, impaled by a dozen sticks. Another one was found dead in a lake. He had been tied to a rock and drowned. His eyes had been gouged out. The final bully and his family moved out of Casper shortly after. Those in the know say the creature is Sam Fuller reincarnated, that he made some deal with the devil to come back at the cost of his own soul. That had been the price he was willing to pay for his revenge. Rumors spread that there were 3 signs he was coming for you. First, you'd be left a toy in a weird place, giving it a deeper meaning. Next, he carved you a mesh with a rock. Finally, he gives you a glimpse of himself in a mirror 24 hours before you die. The mental toll this took on you seemed to be its primary weapon. Those in time didn't seem too bothered by him going after the bullies. They justified it. Well, except for the fact that it didn't stop there. Lowlife started going missing. Rebellious teens were next, and then it was children. Eventually, anyone who did things the creature didn't like became a target. It became an unwritten rule in Casper that if you wanted to be left alone, there were certain things you needed to avoid. Going to the lake after dark, or even messing around it, was strictly prohibited. Throwing rocks was another one. Lastly, you couldn't speak ill of Sam or Toby Fuller. Once those ground rules were understood, things started calming down. The last alleged victim of Sam Fuller was a little girl named Veronica Wright. Alright, anyways, I hate to force all that on you, but it's important to understand how and why things work the way they do in this town. I've been overseas for years, only recently returning, and I missed that entire chapter in the history of Casper. When I returned, I decided to make up for the lost time. I unpacked that When I returned, I decided to make up for the lost time. I unpacked at the old family cabin and did some maintenance in the shed, including a little painting. The shed was not in any condition to be useful at that point, and the work to make it necessary was extensive. I noticed a bottle of vodka in the liquor drawer and immediately emptied it out. I decided to fill it up with something more appropriate. All in all, it took about a week. After I had fulfilled my obligations, I wanted to reach out to an old friend. It had been forever since Mark and I had gone fishing, and it was about time I changed that. Today, Mark was late. I got into the lake just before it had gone, and the weight was beginning to wear on me. We'd always started fishing at the same time, and yet today he was 45 minutes late. There wasn't much to do besides skipping rocks. The light from the moon was replaced by that of the sun, and after a while, I simply sat down to wait for him. He arrived soon after. "You're late," I said. "Don't want to get here too early these days," he replied. "Why? The kids around here are a problem nowadays?" I asked. "Something like that," he said. With that, we pushed his canoe into the water. I was filled with this rush of familiarity. The cool breeze washing across my face reminded me of the many trips we had out here. "I've heard you got yourself a few medals," he asked. "I would have preferred if I hadn't," I replied. "Makes sense." The few hours flew by. We did some catching up, but mostly just enjoyed nature in its purest form. I don't know exactly how long we were out there. I suggested we head back, and Mark agreed. I tried to adjust my position on the boat, but lost balance stepping over some roads. The hours flew by. We did some catching up, but mostly just enjoyed nature in its purest form. I don't know exactly how long we were out there, but eventually I suggested we head back, and Mark agreed. I tried to adjust my position on the boat, but lost my balance stepping over some rods. I fell into Mark, knocking him into the water. I started laughing, but Mark immediately started to scream. "It was an accident. I swear it was an accident." It was hard to tell. It looked like flailing from where I was standing, but it appeared Mark was trying to gesture something. His face was pale and his eyes were darting back and forth at surroundings. "Yeah, I know, Mark. That was my fault," I said, reaching a hand out towards his. "I'm not talking to you," Mark gasped, grabbing my hand and struggling back into the canoe. "Well, then who the hell were you talking to?" I asked. That's when he told me all about Sam Fuller. "Really? That's a pretty unbelievable story, Mark," I said. "I have family, Grayson. I'm not risking it anymore," he replied. "Fair enough." We made our way back to land and said our goodbyes. I gazed upon the lake once more to admire its beauty, then I started to chuckle. Sam Fuller, the lake creature. Okay, yeah, right. I made my way back to my truck, and I still was going to hiking later and figured now was as good of any time to change into my boots. I grabbed them out of my backpack and began to put them on. As I did, my right foot met some resistance. There was something inside. I pulled it out. A shark toy? What the hell? I pondered what this could be. Oh, I see. I was being messed with. A shark in my boot, a predator's afoot. Talk about on the nose. I laughed it off and went on my way. I placed the toy in the passenger seat of my truck. I called up my old flame Molly to join me on the hike. I called up an old flame of mine, Molly, to join me on the hike. It had been forever since we seen each other, and she had always loved hiking. We spent the day laughing away at all the good times we had. It was really good seeing her again. I dropped her off at home and kissed her goodbye. It had been a great day. That night, however, I had trouble sleeping. There were loud scraping sounds outside. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out where they were coming from. The old cabin didn't have any neighbors in close proximity. When I awoke the next morning, I got my answer. Something had been carved into the pavement. It was the word, next. Well, that's just perfect. If Sam Fuller was real, he's working quickly. If he pops up in my mirror, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Hand him a bill for this shit. The rest of the day went by without accident. I bought some ammo and put it next to the gun rack in the shed, just in case. Before I knew it, the sun had come and gone, and I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something in the corner out of my eye. My eyes darted in a direction, and I saw a glimpse of something truly horrifying. In an instant, it was out of my sight, but the details had been seared into my brain. The pale gray skin, the dripping water, the absence of facial features except for the mouth, that disgusting mouth, extending the entire width of the face, each part of it moving as if it's on its own, as if it was a combination of different mouths, each trying to tell its own story, bending unnaturally to do so. I gently left the bathroom and surveyed my surroundings. There wasn't anyone there. I looked down to my left, however, and noticed the carpet had darkened. So he's real. Well, the rest of the story must be true as well. He'd be coming for my life in 24 hours. For the first time, the fear actually began to creep in. It was really hitting me now. I was going to be hunted by an entity of unknown strength and ability. It was quite possible that this was indeed my last night on this planet. I had to ask myself an important question. If this was it for me, how did I want to spend my last day? I tossed and turned all night contemplating the answers to these questions and woke up around 6 a.m. I had roughly 16 hours to live. Despite all the tossing and turning, I realized that at my core, I am truly a simple man. I didn't have many desires. After I woke up, I went out fishing at the lake again in an attempt to ease my own nerves. By the time I got off the lake, I had around, say, 10 hours to go. I drove around town, remembering the days of my youth and all the good times I had in Casper. 8 hours to go. I went to the fire range to see how rusty I was. 6 hours to go. I hit up Molly again. Hell, if it was my last day, I wanted to spend a few of my last hours with her. Took her to dinner and then rekindled some of the old magic for a bit. Before I knew it, it was time to get back. Only 1 hour left. The sun had set and, well, there's only one last thing to do. I made it back to the property with about 20 minutes or so left. I grabbed a Stark toy and one other thing from the seat and headed into the cabin. From there, I made my way into the kitchen. I browsed the liquor cabinet and found the recently filled vodka bottle. In one hand was the bottle, the other held the toy that had forewarned me of my impending doom. I want things to be on my terms. I headed over to the shed. I looked at my gun rack and, well, guess what? It was empty. The ammo was missing too. Yep. Only one last thing to do. I took a seat on the bench at the far end of the room and I drank away. I don't know exactly how long it took from that point on before I heard the rustling outside. Should have been minutes, but hell, it felt like hours. My mind was racing and it all blurred together. I knew exactly what was coming. That's when the door began to creak open. Sam Fuller episode? I said, turning around in my seat. And there he was, in all his disgusting glory, every inch of his great figure dripping. Now that I had a good view of him, I noticed his limbs appeared elongated, and his joints allowed for a greater range of motion than any other human had. His mouth widened, forming what I could only assume was a smile as he took a few steps closer to me. My gaze moved from his head to his feet.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Grayson. Grayson White.
The mouth didn't flinch, but there was little movement where the eyes should have been. Almost like little circles were hiding beneath the layer of gray this thing called a face. You took my guns, but I'm far from helpless. If that's what you thought, you're wrong. I waved the bottle in my left hand. See, this is actually water. I've been waiting for you, you piece of shit. I instantly threw the toy I was holding in my right hand to the left of the creature, drilling the wall, hitting a button painted white. The floor beneath Sam folded downward. He fell. I slowly made my way over to the rectangular hole in the floor and peered down. There was Sam, his body impaled en masse by sharpened silver spikes. He wailed a grotesque howl as pus exited his many piercing wounds. Look, I don't know your state of consciousness or awareness, so I don't know if you understand me or not. But like you, I tragically lost a sibling. I pulled the other item I'd taken from the car out of my pocket, a remote. It had 3 buttons lined up vertically in the middle. I hit the top button. More spikes shot out horizontally, pressing him even further and dismembering his form. By the wails, I could tell that despite being ripped and torn apart, he was still alive. Good. Also, like you, I would have done anything to get revenge. I hit the middle button on the remote and sprinklers rained down from above over the hole. The stench of gasoline filled the air. It was so strong I could taste it. My foe peered up at me, and even without eyes, I could tell he was staring bullets through me. You know, the funny thing about revenge is how short-sighted it is. If you justify revenge against others, you will give others reasons to justify revenge against you. It's a never-ending cycle. Hell, I didn't start it. You didn't start it. And neither did the boys who killed your brother. But we all continued it. My arm extended, and I slowly wagged the remote back and forth. With my other hand, I moved my pointer finger closer and closer to the bottom button, pausing briefly for a moment. The truth is, Sam Fuller, we're the same. Like you, I'm a part of this cycle. I've been part of it for a long time. I know eventually the cycle will come back for me. But today, it's come for you. For Verona White, may you rot in hell. I said, pressing the 3rd button. The hole was immediately set ablaze, the heat tremendous, and parts of my skin singed. Hell, I hadn't budged. It was worth it to keep my eyes on this pitiful creature as he burned straight to hell. I waited until the flames waned, pissing on the ruins to douse the final embers. I looked down on my handiwork and saw the burnt remains of my prey. Finally, I had to avenge my sister. Hey guys, Solivagant here. If you want your video featured on the channel, or if you have any suggestions, make sure to send them to my email. I check it daily.